I will go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Before I do my whole spiel, just make sure that you, Evan, either spotlight my video or you go and pin my video. If you ever lose me in the whole show, just, raise your hand or tell Evan that he needs to spotlight me again, because I will be traveling around and showing you guys things. But again, welcome. My name is Jessica, in case you guys haven't come to our show before. I'm one of the grad students that helps work and run the planetarium. The guy with the space background, that's Evan, our other grad student, and he is going to be almost 100% my tech person tonight. So I am actually here on WVU's campus in Whitehall. I got permission to safely come inside by myself with my mask and my Clorox wipes, so being very safe. But I'm so excited I got permission to show y'all around our planetarium and our observatory. And yes, we do have an observatory that is open to the public after our normal in-person shows. And I can't tell you guys how weird but amazing it is to be back in Whitehall after 4 months, and especially to be back in the planetarium. Evan and I have both spent many hours in the dark here trying to create fun shows and learning the tricks and all the little nuances of running a planetarium since we first started in only January. Now, this show tonight is going to be a little different from our normal shows. Obviously, I'll be showing you around the planetarium, so I will be using my phone video because this is not something we normally do. I am not a professional vlogger, so I'm going to try my best to make sure that you guys can see everything. But if you have any questions or you can't see something, please do put it in the chat. Evan is going to be moderating the chat, and we will answer any of your questions throughout the show. If you can't see something, let us know. Evan will also be making sure you guys can see what I'm trying to show you. It might be a little hectic, but in a really fun and great way. So with all of that, let's go ahead and get started, and I will go ahead and flip my camera around. Here, let me just show you our planetarium in general. As you can see, our planetarium is not super big, which makes social distancing almost impossible, which is really sad. However, it does make our old in-person shows, they were very fun and they were very interactive. And maybe you saw as I panned around that we have a bunch of really cool things along the sides of our planetarium. So I'm actually going to start there. So this area right here that's got all of these computers and my Clorox wipes, that's where we have all of our computers that run our system. We will end up back here when we start playing with our system. And if you've come to any of our in-person shows, you might notice or have noticed this desk seems a little random, but it's really nice because Evan and I can work together at the same time in the planetarium as we make our shows. We also have several of our telescopes that have small issues with them, to put it lightly, that were currently being repaired and worked on as the semester was going on before COVID hit. This is one of our closets that is normally shut. And if I take you guys in here, it's not super interesting, just a lot of shelving, but we do house our astronomy club's telescopes in here. And they're pretty nice telescopes. They're really great. And it's just a cool little closet. And I know a lot of people always ask me in our in-person shows, what's behind that door? So now you guys know. And as I continue walking, you guys will see that we have these posters all around our planetarium. They are actually a relatively new addition. Our director, she put them up in February, pretty much right before we all had to go home. And they are actually free. You guys can get them if you search space tourism posters from NASA. And they're super cool. I won't stop or comment on all of them because there's a lot of really, really cool ones, but you can definitely download them and print them out yourself. Our director spent a while getting them framed nicely and centered all around our room. All right, so next up is our display case. This is also another relatively new addition to our planetarium. It came to us, I think, over winter break, so it's pretty new. And there's a lot of really cool things in here. It's a little hard with the lighting in the planetarium, but I'm gonna try my best to show you guys what's in here. And we'll talk about some of the things in here that I think are really, really cool. Starting with these two bowls. Hopefully you guys can see through the reflection a little bit. So these bowls are actually made by a local artist, Sarah Gurry. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. They were made in 2017 for the Celebrating Einstein event, and you might be able to see in them that there's kind of some ripples towards the center. Those are actually representative of gravitational waves. As you can see, there's two black dots in the center of our bowls, and those represent black holes. You can see in the bowl on the left that those black holes are a little bit further apart than the ones in the bowl on the right. So these bowls are actually showing what happens as these two black holes merge and we get gravitational waves from that merging simulation or process. Then we've got a bunch of other really cool things. And then one of my favorite things are these three bolts. Hopefully, can you guys see that all right?
Yeah, it looks good as long as you like press it close to the glass. Like right now, it looks fine.
Fantastic. All right. So these three bolts are really cool. The smallest bolt, the one, move my hand, the one closest to you, the smallest one, was actually in and part of the Green Bank Telescope, which is a 17 million pound telescope that has an area of about 2 acres. So it is a huge engineering marvel, extremely big. I cannot stress how big it is. And I don't know about y'all, but that bolt looks really tiny to be part of something so big. And it was. It actually had to be replaced by the largest bolt all the way in the back. So they slightly misjudged what bolt they needed. It was replaced in 2006, and these bolts were actually donated to us by Dr. Richard Prestige, who worked at the Green Bank Observatory for several years, and he actually worked a lot on the telescope design and calibration. So these are really, really cool. And in addition to all of these cool magazines, and maybe you saw some telescope parts and eyepieces, we have these, which are the little black circles, are actually tactile constellations, which actually lets blind students feel what a constellation would look like. This one right here is actually of the Little Dipper. So a blind astronomer can feel that and know what the image, as we would say, of the Little Dipper is. And I absolutely love this because we really think of astronomy as a science that you have to use your eyes for. But that's not the case at all. You know, there's several blind astronomers that are doing amazing research, and a lot of the demos that they use in astronomy classrooms in colleges and even in high schools are actually being rethought out so that they can allow blind students to understand the concepts just as well. So this is actually probably one of my favorite things in this display case because I think it's absolutely extraordinary. All right, so a lot of cool stuff already, and we're only halfway around the room, which is crazy. Next up is this tire. Again, sorry about the lighting, trying to get that right. But this tire, it kind of just looks like a plain old tire, but it's actually a space shuttle tire. And surprisingly, space shuttle tires are not much larger than a truck tire, even though they have to hold the weight of pretty much a Boeing 747. And they have to be so strong and take so much pressure that they really are only used once or twice in any kind of spaceship flight before they're deemed unsafe. So if you come visit us in person, you can actually come and see a space shuttle tire that has been in space. This particular one was in space for 15 days. Now, as I go around the room, you'll see we still have some of our space tourism posters up, looking pretty cool. And then trying to go around all of our chairs, we'll come to this telescope right here, which has a very interesting story. You might have heard that the astronomy observatories at WVU have lived a tortured existence. In 1919, after the WVU football team beat Princeton 25-0 in a very intense football game, some students decided to burn down the observatory, which doesn't really make sense to me, but whatever. During the fire, the math department chair actually went in and saved the telescope that was in the observatory. However, that telescope ultimately got destroyed in another fire in a different building. So that's quite unfortunate, but the faculty at that time decided that they were going to gather their money together and buy a new telescope, which is the telescope that you see in front of us. So this telescope was from the early 1900s. It's all original glass and eyepieces, which is absolutely astounding to think of having lasted that long. It is WVU's oldest surviving telescope, not the oldest telescope, as that one unfortunately burned down. But it's really, really cool. And people have said that any disturbances to the current observatory on top of Whitehall will be met with hexes from our department. People think we've been through enough, so maybe just keep that in mind if you come visit us, to really make sure you pay attention to our telescope assistants, because you don't want to get a hex put on you. And then last up is this really giant telescope right here. This telescope is a 30-inch Dobsonian telescope that was donated by a West Virginian man named Justin. It's huge. It's absolutely extraordinary that we were donated something this great. And he actually built it for himself for his own observatory, but decided in 2018 to donate it to us, which is fantastic. We have plans, actually already have a plot of land where we're going to build our observatory for this telescope and connect it so that our students can use it for research, and connect it to Skynet, which will allow people from all over the world to look at it. So our dome is really, really cool, and we will come back and play on our dome in just a second. But like I said, we do have our observatory. So let me take you guys on out to our observatory. And this is a great time for you guys to ask any questions at all in the chat. Evan can direct them to me as I walk outside.
So Jessica also had to mute herself because, as you can see by all this stuff on the sides, this is a lot of the machinery that powers Whitehall and a lot of the heating and air conditioning and stuff like that. And so I don't think anyone would want to hear any of the loud machinery noises going on. So that's why Jessica's muted until she gets into our observatory, which she has just entered.
Yeah, thank you for that, Evan. It is very loud out there.
Yeah.
All right. So here we are in our observatory at WVU, and it's pretty cool. Let me back up. This structure right here is what holds up our telescope. It goes all the way down to the ground, all the way through Whitehall. Pretty large structure. Our dome is equipped with a 14-inch Celestron telescope. Like I said earlier, you guys are welcome to come and view out of it after our normal in-person public shows. We have a telescope assistant, usually someone from the astronomy club or an undergrad majoring in astronomy. We will come and set it up to point at something really cool. And I've seen Saturn and Venus a few times. I was able to sneak out here too. And unfortunately, I didn't set it up just because it's still light out and not really anything super cool in the sky for us to see. But you can definitely get a fantastic view of downtown Morgantown. Maybe you guys see your house. I think I see Evan's.
Yep.
So that is our telescope observatory. And again, it is open for y'all to view through after our normal in-person shows. Okay, so I've shown you all the things around our planetarium. I've shown you our really amazing telescope. Now let's go back inside and play on our system and get to fly through space. So again, I'm gonna have to walk on the roof and mute myself for the same reasons, but feel free to ask any questions. I can still hear Evan, and we'll get you guys your answer.
So we have a question. What kind of telescope is the 30-inch telescope in here?
It is a Dobsonian telescope.
Gotcha. Dobsonian.
Yes. And all right, I'm gonna have to shut down all my lights so that we can see our dome. So let me get that going. All right, so I've turned off all of our lights and we are ready to play on our dome. So this right here is the computer system. This is what Evan and I use to play around and fly through space. You can see that there's a bunch of things we can click on, things that are preloaded, places for us to go to. And then this circle right here, this is what is showing up on our dome currently. And I have it set to today at 5:30 p.m., so a little bit earlier. And you can see that we have our sun right here. And if I walk on into our dome, point upwards, you can see we have our sun right there. So one of the things that has always kind of confused people is, where do the stars go during the day? Do they disappear? Do they set? Well, that's not actually, none of those answers are true. And what's really cool with our system is we can control the sunlight. So if I make the sun much dimmer, you can see that we have a few dots of light. It's a little hard to see on the screen through Zoom, but there are some stars out. So the stars are always there. Our sun is just too bright for us to see the stars during the day.
Jessica, can you try like unmuting and putting your sound back on? It just sounds a little glitchy. Like, I don't know if it's the signal or it just sounds a little robotic.
Yeah, maybe I was holding it also over my microphone. Is that slightly better?
Yeah, it's a little better.
Okay.
Yeah, you're still, you know, easy to hear and everything. It's just a little glitchy, but I think you're fine.
All right. Well, let me know if it gets too bad.
Okay.
All right. So let me turn the daylight back on. And what's really cool on this system is that we can actually change our date and time up here. And let me actually have the sun set. So we're at 5:30 right now, and I'll go down so you can watch what will happen, what will be projected on our dome. If I go forward in time an hour, and then another hour, and a couple more hours, this is our dome, likes to play with us a little bit. All right, here we go. Now our sun is setting some more. Here we have some stars coming out. There we go. Our stars are out in the night. So, just made our dome follow what I was showing you guys. And if I actually walk out into the dome and point upwards, you guys can't see anything, which is a shame. But I promise there are stars up on our dome. So let me actually turn on the constellations, turn on their art so that we can see them. So I'll turn it on. You'll see, hopefully, kind of, a little hard because I have all the lights off, but you can see on our dome we have some art put up, and cannot see that. Let me turn on our stick figures. As you can see, nothing is going to replace the actual fun and joy of you guys coming to view us and see us in person. Can you see that, Evan?
I can't really see anything, no. There we go. Yeah.
All right, so not super great, but you guys can see that we do have some of our constellations up on our night sky, on our dome. And these are the constellations that will be up tonight. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys can make out any of the constellations. Let's see, there's a swan way up there. I think that one for you guys. Dragon.
I can see a giraffe right below the dragon. That's always my favorite.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see that there's a giraffe in our night sky. All right, so do you guys think that the constellations in our northern and southern hemisphere are going to be the same? Or does anybody have anywhere in the southern hemisphere that they want to go and look at the night sky?
Yeah, you can put in the chat just any location in the southern hemisphere you can think of.
No one's thinking of anything. That's absolutely okay. I will pick a place.
We got Johannesburg, South Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. All right. Hopefully you guys can see it's a map. I'm gonna just pick somewhere. Got South Africa, and I'm gonna view from that location. And I'm going to have our constellations. Hopefully you guys saw that change. So if I go back into our dome and look up, can you guys see some of the constellations, or do I need to turn the light back on?
We can kind of see it, but it might be better if you turn the light on.
Yeah, I was trying to get it off of our computer screen, but no worries. All right, so we got some more of our constellations, and I'm pointing straight up, just like I was before. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but you know, I don't see really any kind of swan or giraffe or anything. So these constellations are actually completely different. So that means that the sky we see in the northern hemisphere is way different from the sky we see in the southern hemisphere. And it seems a little weird to think of that, but that way, you know, that's why we need telescopes in both the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, so that we can see all of our night sky. All right, so I'm gonna take us back home to Morgantown. And I'm gonna turn all our constellations off. And the other really cool thing about this program is that we can fly to any planet in our solar system. So does anybody have a planet that they want to visit? Again, you can put it in the chat and Evan will tell me.
We got Mars and Saturn.
All right, so let's go to Mars first.
Now your audio sounds a lot better. Whatever you just did, that sounds good.
Okay, interesting. Don't know what I did, but great. All right, so I have Mars up. Let me see if you guys can see it up on our dome. Here we have Mars. And maybe you guys can see that it is a little red. So that is our red planet. And the sky behind it, because you guys can't see the stars, it is actually moving. Maybe we'll see Mars's two moons pop up. They are Deimos and Phobos, which are fear and panic in Latin. And those are aptly named because Mars is our planet named after the king of war, or the god of war. So red kind of seems a good name for it. You can see time is going on and we're seeing less and less of Mars as it kind of moves back and away out of the sunlight. All right, and I think you said Saturn, Evan?
Yes.
Which is good. We'll get one inner, one outer. So let me click on Saturn, and you can see it popped up on our screen. And if I go stand, here we have Saturn. And I don't know if you guys can see its rings, but its rings are showing up. I don't know if you guys can see those little weird red blurs that are moving. Maybe not, but Saturn has a lot of moons. I think over 180 moons. So anything that you see moving is going to be the moons orbiting around Saturn. And Saturn is actually a really cool planet because it is really, really not dense, which means if we could get a bathtub big enough to put Saturn in, it would float like a rubber duck, which is pretty cool if you ask me, to think that a giant planet like that could float. Okay, so let me go back home. All right, back in Morgantown, and maybe let's kind of fly somewhere out of our solar system. So I'm going to pick the Andromeda Galaxy and gonna forward the time so that it is up in our night sky. Woo! Sorry, I didn't have it on stop, but hopefully you guys can see we have labeled the Andromeda Galaxy. Sorry about the lights behind me. I think because Evan is so much taller than me, it worked out better when he was in here testing it. But you can see the Andromeda Galaxy label, it's still really small, really far away. So why don't we zoom all the way to the Andromeda Galaxy? So maybe you guys can see that it is moving. We're zooming and we zoomed a bit closer, but you know what? It's still not, sorry, it is still not very close. So why don't I center it a little bit and let's zoom in even more. All right, so it's getting pretty big now. Let's zoom in some more. Wow, seems to be really big now. So you guys are viewing in this circle. This is what's going to show up on our dome. So I've made the Andromeda Galaxy huge, pretty much the entire length of our dome. So if I walk out into our dome and I point upwards, you guys can see that we have our Andromeda Galaxy really, really big. And it looks a little funky because it's warped, because our dome is actually just what that sounds like, a dome. So it's curved, and so it's really great when you're in person, in our seats, and watching a show. However, it doesn't translate super well on a flat screen, which is unfortunate and makes doing virtual planetarium shows a little hard for us, which is why we've switched to slightly more presentations. But it's still a really awesome opportunity, and we highly recommend that you guys come visit us once we open back up, or go to a planetarium if there's one that is much closer to you guys. All right, so I'm gonna fly us back home so that we are back in Morgantown. And I'm gonna go ahead and flip my video around. All right, so that was a tour of our system and our planetarium and our observatory. I do apologize with some of the lights. As you can imagine, our planetarium shows are pretty much always done in complete darkness. So it's pretty hard for us to relay that and still have you guys be able to see what is up on our screen and what we want to show you. And we really hope that you guys will come and see Evan and I sometime, hopefully in the near future if we open back up. We're still unsure about when we will open back up, but we are so excited that we were able to share a place that Evan and I pretty much lived in during non-COVID times with all of you guys. And I know this was kind of a whirlwind of a show, and we did only advertise to 7, but I am happy to stay on until 7:15, and you guys can ask us any questions. If you want me to go back and show something in more detail, we can fly to a different planet. And what's really, really cool about our system, our planetarium system, is that we can go to any place and date, time, anywhere, anytime. And if you guys want to go somewhere else and see what the night sky looked like, please put it in the chat and let us know.
When you asked for another planet, we did get another request for Mercury, if you want to find Mercury.
Yeah. All right, let me flip my camera, which I think it did. Okay, so Mercury, right?
Yes.
All right, put Mercury up there. Let me go into our dome. It's a little hard to see this guy because his color is pretty much gray, and it looks a lot like our moon, but it's not. I promise this is not our moon. It is Mercury. It's the closest planet to the sun, even though it's not the hottest planet. Venus is actually the hottest planet in our solar system, but Venus is actually the second planet from the sun. And Venus is so much hotter than Mercury because of what we call a greenhouse gas effect. Pretty much Venus just has an atmosphere made up of methane gas, which doesn't let any of the sunlight or sun heat come back out after it comes and settles on the planet. But here is Mercury, and you'll notice that, well, maybe you won't notice because it's hard to see again on our dome, but there is no moons or anything orbiting around this planet because a lot of our inner planets do not have moons. All right, anything else or any other questions?
We got another request to see Jupiter.
Ooh, I love it. I love Jupiter, one of my favorite planets. Oh, let me move so that we can see Jupiter. There we go. All right. So here is Jupiter. I stopped the time so we won't see any of its moons orbiting. But Jupiter is a really, really cool planet. It's one of our outer planets. It's called a gaseous planet. And this dot right there, that's the Great Red Spot, which is a huge, giant storm. About 3 Earths can fit across the Great Red Dot. So it's hard for you to get an idea of how big it is because we're just looking at a picture of it. But 3 Earths can fit just in that dot right there. And it's this huge giant storm that has been raging since Galileo Galilei first observed it about 300 years ago. So that's one heck of a storm. But Jupiter is extremely pretty. These bands represent different areas of the atmosphere on Jupiter, and the areas where these bands kind of meet and get together have a lot of turbulence, and it's hard to see because I'm showing you something on our dome than through the flat screen, but there's a lot of swirls, and our Great Red Dot is actually at one of those intersections. And because of the differences in pressure and wind speed at those edges of the bands, storms will pop up. All right, hit me with another,
Awesome.
Evan.
We got a request to see Neptune,
Ooh.
which I'm excited about because that's my favorite planet.
Oh, well, do you want to chat about it or you want me to chat about it?
Well, why don't you go ahead and get it up?
Yeah. Oh, it's going the wrong way to have it fully lit. Boom. All right. Here's Neptune. It is a very cool planet, though it is a little sad because it just looks like a blue dot on our dome.
It is still very cool, though.
Yeah.
I think my favorite Neptune fun fact is it was the only planet to be discovered by math. It's so far away that people couldn't see it even with a telescope. And it wasn't until people were looking at Uranus, the planet one closer, and they said, huh, that's weird. It's doing some weird things with its orbit that don't seem right. And then some very smart people were able to do some math and said, huh, Uranus's orbit would make a lot more sense if there was a planet farther away. And they figured out exactly where it would be in the night sky. And people pointed telescopes at that exact location, and boom, there was Neptune. And I just think that's so cool. So
Yeah, I agree with you. So if you're ever in math class, kind of like, what the heck am I going to do with this math? Maybe discover a new planet. So if you happen to do that, please come back and see us and tell us all about your new planet, because that's amazing.
yes, absolutely.
All
And
right.
we had someone say, we know it's not a true planet, but can we see Pluto? And let me just say that I think Jessica and I feel the same way, that when we were growing up, Pluto was a planet. So even if the official thing is that Pluto is not a planet right now, in our hearts, it'll always be a planet. So yes, I do love Pluto.
Yes, unfortunately, Pluto is not in the preset solar system set, but I can find it for you guys. So here's Pluto, and maybe you'll notice that it looks, already the planets that I've shown you have just looked kind of small. Again, viewing it on our dome through a flat screen on your laptop doesn't help. But Pluto, if I hold my finger up, it looks really small compared to like Jupiter when I was pointing out the great red spot. So that's kind of one of the reasons why they sadly decided Pluto can no longer be a planet. They thought it was too small. There's actually moons in our solar system orbiting around Saturn and Jupiter that are actually bigger than Pluto. And they were just kind of like, okay, it might be time to say Pluto is now a dwarf planet instead of an actual planet. But there he is, kind of small in our sky, even though we're zoomed really close to him right now. All right. Any other planet or date, time, place people would like to see our night sky from?
I don't see anything right now, but if anyone would like to drop, oh, we have someone asking to see Venus. The planets are really, really popular tonight.
They truly are, which is fantastic. The planets are some of the really cool things that we can show on our dome. So here we have Venus. And like I was saying earlier, this is the second planet closest to the sun, but it is the hottest because of that greenhouse gas effect. And scientists are actually studying Venus a lot because of this greenhouse gas effect, and they're learning a lot of maybe say what Earth might or what might happen to Earth in a very, very extreme case with the greenhouse gas effect. And I have the motion is still on and moving. That's why we're slowly seeing less and less and less of Venus. I have the time moving about 300 times as what it normally is. All right. I'm seeing some activity in the chat. I don't know what they're saying though.
Yeah, we've got a few requests. So this is for a date and time. If
All right.
we could go to January 21, 2013 at 10 o'clock p.m.
Okay. 2013, January. Oh, sorry. Trying to get this one-handed is a little difficult, but I'm up here changing the different things up there. So you said January.
Yes.
All right, January. Oh, I accidentally changed. 2013, and what was the day?
The 21st.
21st. And was there a time?
Yeah, 10 o'clock p.m.
All right. And 00. I'm gonna make that PM. All right. So again, hard to see. So let me turn on constellations. You can see them pretty good. Let me actually, hopefully you guys can see them okay on our dome. If I walk in, it takes a while for my phone to kind of rethink. That dot right there, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that is actually the moon. Hard to see some of the constellation lines. My phone is trying to get the lighting just right so you can see it. Let me go back to our computer where we can see the lines a lot better. But this is the night sky on January 21st, 10 o'clock in Morgantown. We are still in Morgantown. So the constellations look pretty much the same. A lot of cool things. This is right there is Orion upside down, but Orion nonetheless, which makes sense because if you come to any of our previous shows that we were doing in person in January and February, you know that we pretty much always pointed out Orion. He is one of our winter hunters, one of the constellations that you can easily see during the winter night sky, but we see a different set of constellations during the summer. All right, I think we have time for maybe one more request.
Perfect, because we have one more request to see the Butterfly Nebula.
Ooh, all right. We're flying to the Butterfly Cluster, and it might just be a set of, so the Butterfly Cluster, it's saying, is this set of stars right there. While I'm zooming in, Evan, can you determine whether the Butterfly Nebula is in the southern or northern hemisphere?
It should be close by. It should be in the southern hemisphere. Both the cluster and the nebula are in the constellation Scorpius, which is, I believe, southern. So.
Oh, yep. I just turned on Butterfly Nebula, and it is labeled right in there. Hard
there
to
we go.
see. Let me see if I can zoom in some more.
Yeah.
All right. So this is our butterfly cluster, but the nebula must be this specific area. And usually when we show you guys, you know, nebula or star-forming regions, we normally take images from the internet that are done by Hubble and overlay them on our system so you can get really, really beautiful pictures. Because as you can see, the Butterfly Nebula is a beautiful kind of image if you Google it, but our system knows where it's at, can show you the cluster that it's in, but doesn't have the beautiful picture, say, that like Hubble has. Unfortunately, so that's what we got with our system. And if I go into the dome, I zoomed in a lot so you can see that the stars are really, really big, and we have our big giant cluster. All right, well, I think that will be all for our show tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's some of Evan and my's favorite work as grad students is being able to come and, first of all, play with our system and learn all the really cool things that are in it, as well as have these in-person shows that we miss so much. So I really, really hope you guys will come visit us once we open back up, which again, we don't have a date, unfortunately, but do keep an eye out on our social media and we'll let you know as soon as we have a plan. But we're really excited to hopefully meet you guys someday in person because I see a lot of repeat people for all of our shows and I cannot wait to meet you guys in person. You guys are asking some fantastic questions. You guys are learning so much. You guys will probably know more about space than Evan and I, so you're going to come and ask us questions that are going to stump us. But we truly hope to be able to see all of y'all. And you know, just remember that our public night shows, they're all free. In person, they were free. Our virtual shows are free. So once the world gets a little bit back to normal, we really hope you guys will come and visit us. We're dying to be able to give our normal shows again. as you can tell through this tour, doing shows with our system, showing you our dome. It's still not as fantastic or as wonderful as it is in person. I cannot stress that enough.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jessica. I also just want to take a second to plug that we have our last week of summer virtual shows next week, same time as usual, Wednesday and Friday at 6:30. On Wednesday, I will be giving a show on solar superstorms so we can learn a little bit more about our sun and what makes it tick. And on Friday, we have an outreach specialist from the Green Bank Observatory coming to talk to us about a special program, and you can learn a little bit about the science of wind. So definitely worth checking out our last virtual shows before we take a quick break to kind of recoup and figure out what we're going to be doing for the fall semester. So I'm going to drop the link to our website in the chat, and you can go ahead and register for those and just keep up to date with everything we're doing at our website.
Yeah, and with that, I'm going to go disinfect everything that I touched because our physics and astronomy department is doing a fantastic job with all of their regulations and safety protocols. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.